Alright guys, it's been a while, so I figured I'd put up another video. This one is a little bit boring because I don't really get too finished with this drawing, and it was a quicker drawing that I did because I realized that I screwed up and I had it a little too big for my sketchbook, so I went ahead and went to dark pencil fairly quickly and only half finished this drawing. But I've gotten a lot of subscriptions since I've stopped posting videos, so I figured I'd post a new one for you. I start talking about lines and how I think about line work about 7 minutes into this, so you might want to skip ahead to that. Coming up shortly is where I realize that what I've been drawing isn't working out right. It's not going to fit on the paper properly, and that's just pretty much out of my laziness. I was starting quickly, working from top to bottom. I kind of tend to do that a lot because things usually work out for me all right doing that. And that's why I switched to the dark pencil there right away. Just, I figured I would go over what I'd been drawing just so that I have something in my sketchbook that I could get something out of and learn from. And this whole thing that you'll see here, the actual drawing I did in about 39 minutes total.
I want to talk a little bit about how lines work. I've talked about it in some other videos, and there isn't a whole lot of examples on this piece here. I guess I'll use a few small ones. You need to think of a line more as it's really an indicator of what you're really looking at of real life. It's not, a line isn't like a road map of roads. Like you're looking at this two-dimensional map of what's going on, and you know, there's houses here, and okay, these are streets, and everything is flat. So don't think of a line as, oh, this line, it's like a road and it goes like this. This line needs to be exactly this way, and that's the line. That's really not how lines work, but that's how a lot of amateur artists and people starting to see lines. They're looking at their reference and they're looking at their drawing, and they're, you know, biting their tongue and moving all slow and getting all close, going, this line has to be exactly like this because this is exactly how I see it in the picture, and it's exactly like that. Okay, now this line is exactly right here, and that's really, you shouldn't be thinking about lines in that way at all. A line is like a three-dimensional thing. You need to think of it more like it's a ribbon or something. It's coming back and forth and moving towards you and away from you, and you know, it's a totally three-dimensional thing. Okay, this is the back of the ribbon. See how it's coming around, and then okay, this will be the back of the ribbon again, and see, it goes away from you and towards you. That's what a line really behaves like. And as an example, what I wanted to show is lines on a drawing act like that too, where this line is in front of this line. This line is going behind that line. That's what makes it three-dimensional. That's what makes us realize that, okay, this is closer to us and this is further away. It's just the logic of how lines intersect. Lines work that way. And when I talk about rhythm lines and certain ways lines behave, like I've pointed this out before, where you have three different lines where the distance of the two shorter lines added together equal the longer line, and a lot of times you'll see it in that general shape, and they don't even need to be connected, but you see like that line relationship a lot because it's a golden ratio thing. It's one of the things that I look for and see all the time, and like when I'm looking at my reference and I'm trying to figure out what's what, there's a lot of ways I can go about roughing out my drawing and picking out the things that I see and that I'm drawing, and that's one of those things where rhythm lines sort of come into play. It's sort of the same thing. Like, you'll notice that line relationship a lot, and you'll notice it a lot on the back, because that is sort of how the back works too. Is a rhythm line is something that sort of flows around, say like this is a pole or a dowel or something. Rhythm lines tend to go around it like that. The nature of rhythm lines is that they flow around foundation. And you see it a lot in the back because of the angles of the shoulder blades and how everything works and everything goes around your spine. And it falls in that golden ratio relationship where you'll see instances like that everywhere, where you'll just notice that there's points that you can kind of pick out that, oh, that's that line relationship right there. And this isn't the best example, but it's like it's everywhere. You just see it all over your drawings a lot. And without having to say, if I'm roughing something out and I'm using shapes for like torsos and whatnot, a lot of people will rough things out, you know, using like a mannequin figure and things like that. But I don't tend to do that a lot, and part of the reason why is because of my method here, utilizing rhythm lines. Even though my proportion may be getting a little off, I tend to use my reference really loosely if I'm going to use reference at all, and things sort of end up working out correctly, because when I'm looking for these three line relationships, these have the rhythm of going around the foundation of the body. So if I'm seeing these three, and I'm seeing, like, you know, three more that are going another way, which there aren't really in this drawing, but what that's really doing is putting the foundation in place for me. Because the way that these three lines line up with these three lines, if they work out correctly towards what I'm looking at, it's going to make the foundation get put in its place without me having to actually draw, you know, a stick figure in there and then putting everything around it. So it's just part of my method. It's how lines work, and there really is a logic to how things are falling together, and it's very realistic and it works well. It's just something I've sort of developed from paying attention to what's going on, how lines work and stuff when I'm drawing. So this line is in front of this line. It's not that difficult. This line has gone behind this line. This line is in front of those lines. This line has gone in front of that line. This line is coming from behind that line. This line goes in front of those lines. And obviously, you know, cross-hatching and feathering in these lines, usually what they're doing is following the contour of the surface. And so it helps to make things evident when you're using cross-hatching if you're going into a dip versus a bulbous thing. Say this is sticking out, this is going in. So you ought to be kind of consistent about that. It's going to throw things off if you have it going a different way. So that's why these rhythms of lines also pertain to how the shading and feathering is also working on the surface, because all that really is, it's just lines following the surface contours of something. What are lines? How do lines work? I don't know how people can spend so much time drawing and learning how to draw and not realize how lines work. Like, this line has gone behind this line. A line that's closer to you is bigger. A line further away is smaller. Okay, I sort of remembered why I don't like inking and filming it, because I can't move my screen around and it's really awkward. And this one was more of ambiguous, where you kind of don't have a clear foundation to draw from, not all that clear, but I still sketched it, and just using my method, things tended to work out correctly like this. But this would be an example of how lines pass in front of other lines. For instance, this line is in front of this line as the back is moving away from you. This line is sort of the hump of your back, you see there that rises up right next to your spine. So that's sort of a lump in your back which goes in front of this line as this line is moving away from you. So that line goes in front of that line. And here is sort of the contour where it goes from a bulbous thing to a concave section. So the lines, if this was rendered, are going in the other direction. They're swooping instead of being bulbous. So lines, when they pass in front of other lines, is usually it's an indicator of an edge. And this is in front of that, getting closer to us. And the line will get thicker the closer it is to us also. See how this line is one of the closer things to us in the drawing is this line. And it's like the thickest line, one of the thickest lines. And in inking this, which I haven't inked this one, these lines that are closer to us down here on the leg would be the thickest lines because they are the closest lines to us. Because when you ink something, what you're doing is making the drawing more three-dimensional. You're making it try to pop off the page and be easier for us to tell what it is. Inking is supposed to make things clear, not make them more obscured, which is a big problem I see in a lot of amateurish inkers. The artist will have an intention of feathering that makes something look rounded off. The effect as though they interpreted this or from a real life image and are putting it on two-dimensional paper, so they're trying to come up with an effect that says, okay, this is a round object, so this is how the shadow is sort of fading from light to dark or whatnot. And that's why they chose to feather or to shade in a certain way. And a lot of times you'll see an inker will come in and totally change it into some stupid angular thing that they think looks clever or something like this, or who knows. And it just totally ruins the effect. They don't even have a clue of what they're trying to interpret and why they're interpreting it in the way that they're interpreting it. This drawing, when I did this drawing, had no reference whatsoever. It was just from my head and scribbling out a structure and building on it. And I use the same thing that I always used. Even when I am drawing from reference, I'm using the same methods. And I come up with these curved lines that pass in front of each other, and it makes this three-dimensional image where the lines that are coming towards you get fatter, or the surrounding lines are a bit thicker, and it creates something that's very in your face and has three dimensions, especially because of, say, like an edge like this where this is behind this, and it's obvious that it's behind that because it's totally separated by this thick line. And that relationship of having something going in front of something else or something behind something is what creates those effects. So even when you can't totally separate it, like on the body like here, it's not totally separated, but because there's the one side where there is a line that's in front of a line that's in front of a line, it shows that there is some dimensionality to that surface. It's just hard to find examples in my own work, I suppose, of what not to do. But a lot of times you'll see people rendering and shading things and using their cross-hatching and that sort of thing. And they will be, say, I'm going to shade this like this, and I'm going to shade this like this. And, and then all of a sudden they have something that has totally lost all the logic that was going on. There's no dimensionality to it. It's just like a fancy, the cross-hatching is cool. And, but there's no, this is in front of that, or it all gets muddled to what's what. It's just like a big mess of shadows and rendered surfaces and fancy, clever feathering that has ruined really what's dynamic about the image. And I'm a little excessive as far as line work. versus rendered things, obviously, but